I'm Stephen McIntyre. I'm Director of Online Sales and Operations for EMEA at Twitter. And I joined Twitter about a year ago to help set up our international headquarters here in Dublin. And before that I was in Google for many years, for nearly 7 years. Well, generally speaking, there's been enormous growth across, I think, a lot of social businesses over the last few years. If you look at Twitter in particular, we passed an important milestone for us just recently, that 200 million active users milestone, which is a big one. And then if you look at the amount of content that's actually being pushed out there on the network, it's really enormous at this stage. You've got about 400 million tweets going out every day. The main influences traditionally have been our users primarily. So if you look at things like the hashtag or even the retweet, they were both things that were done by users first of all, before they were later subsequently integrated more formally into the product. So the users do tend to be at the forefront of how the product is being used, because it's quite an open, simple platform. So we look closely at how our users are using it, and we try to adapt the product to suit that. So another big thing that I think has influenced Twitter on the advertising side, on the revenue side, has been the whole display ads ecosystem over the years. I mean, the click-through rates of display ads have been traditionally pretty low, the 0.05 to 0.07%, and that was a big reason why Twitter chose the business model that it did a few years ago, which was really, rather than having display ads, to integrate the ads into the content itself down the timeline, and to pick one pretty simple standard ad unit in the form of a tweet. So that was a big influencer on the business side for Twitter. The biggest challenge for Twitter is probably, back to my earlier point about the scale of the network and the amount of content out there. So with so many users and so many tweets out there, and the problem for Twitter is surfacing content to make it relevant to users. So one of the interesting things I think for Twitter from a business's point of view is that users tend to go onto Twitter with a discovery mindset. So they tend to open up their phone, open up the application, because they want to discover something new. They don't know what it is, but they want to discover something new. And that's a really, really powerful intent on the behalf of the consumer for a business that might want to engage with that user. But from Twitter's point of view, actually, it raises an interesting challenge, which is how do you surface the content to the user in a way that will satisfy the sort of discovery mindset? And you'll see as a result that the redesigns of the Twitter app and web page over the last few years have brought the Discover tab to more prominence. And you'll see more and more work done in that area, I think, in the future, where if you go into the Discover tab now, you will see some form of a more curated, more personalized view of tweets and content targeted at that particular user. And that's pretty interesting for businesses as well, because I think if a business can communicate to the user at the right time in an engaging way, in an authentic way that doesn't feel like a press release, then that's a good way to communicate with your consumer. In 2020, well, that's 7 years ahead. Twitter is now 7 years old. One big objective for Twitter is really to go mainstream in every country. I think at the moment there's been massive growth over the last few years, and Twitter has really gone from an early adopter type of product to, I think, a mainstream product in a few of the big markets. And I think over the next few years you'll likely see that tipping point coming in more and more countries around the world. So that's a really big, important one for Twitter. I mean, this continuing movement towards mobile is it's been important for a few years. I think it will continue to be over the next few. So again, a big challenge for Twitter is to provide a beautiful, simple mobile experience for people. I think it's a product that's well suited for mobile, so we're well placed for that. But you know, there's no doubt that more and more users are going to be spending more and more time on their mobile. In countries like the UK, for example, more than 80% of Twitter users are already using Twitter on their mobile. It's a bit lower, for example, in the US, but I think you'll see every country moving more and more towards the UK model, where the vast majority of users are going to be using these products on their mobile. My hope would be that the internet cluster that we have in Dublin continues apace, and that also we get an increasing startup culture, which I think has emerged as well in the last few years. So we have this combination of the two. My hope as well is that students in secondary school now start choosing more and more STEM courses, so science, technology, engineering, maths courses, because all of this for the future requires that the kids that we're educating are studying and choosing the right things. And I think there's some evidence as well of that people are choosing engineering and science courses more than they were 5-6 years ago. That's good for the future too. So, you know, in that sense, I think there are positive signs. And then from Twitter's point of view, hopefully we can make a small positive contribution ourselves. I mean, we've gone from 0 to 70 people in the last year. And then hopefully over the next few years, I hope we'll hire hundreds of people in Ireland, and Twitter will become big and important, our international headquarters in Dublin.